There was a man named Richard Connolly, a once jovial actor who had the privilege of portraying Barney, the beloved purple dinosaur, on the iconic children's television show. Richard had delighted in bringing joy and laughter to the hearts of children, and for years, he reveled in the love and adoration of his young audience. However, as the years passed, so did the popularity of the show. Richard found himself typecast as Barney, and despite his attempts to pursue other roles, the shadow of the purple dinosaur loomed large over his career. His once promising acting journey began to crumble, and resentment festered within him. The final blow came when a new producer took over the show, making changes that Richard vehemently disagreed with. His role as Barney was abruptly terminated, leaving him jobless and bitter. The joyous, lovable dinosaur had become a symbol of his dashed dreams and fading career. Fueled by anger and desperation, Richard sank into a deep depression. His obsession with the character in the show consumed him entirely. In a fit of madness, he hatched a dark plot to reclaim his lost fame. Richard, once a beacon of happiness, became a shadowy figure, dabbling in occult practices and forbidden rituals. One fateful night, within the dimly lit confines of his apartment, Richard performed a twisted ceremony that summoned a malevolent force. Seeking revenge and a perverse form of immortality, he offered his own soul as a sacrifice, inviting the malevolent force to take residence within the Barney suit that had once defined him. As the malevolent force merged with the lifeless dinosaur suit, the cursed Barney was born. Richard's essence became entwined with the malevolent energy, forever sealing his fate. The once beloved children's character had been perverted into a nightmarish entity, and Richard, now a shell of his former self, became an eternal puppet in the malevolent force's cruel play. The cursed Barney, now a vessel of darkness and corruption, haunted the abandoned PBS Kids studio, luring unsuspecting souls into its malevolent grasp. The twisted celebration and the cursed congregation within the studio were a manifestation of Richard's descent into madness and the unholy alliance he had forged with the malevolent force. The legacy of the cursed Barney carried the weight of Richard Connolly's shattered dreams and the malevolent force's insatiable hunger for new victims. The once beloved actor had become the architect of his own tragic downfall, forever bound to the haunting echoes of the twisted children's songs and the malevolent puppetry that controlled the cursed Barney.
Deep in the heart of the abandoned PBS Kids studio, a daring explorer named Alex geared up for the adventure of a lifetime. Rumors of a mysterious and unsettling presence within the studio had intrigued him, and he couldn't resist the allure of the unknown. As Alex cautiously stepped through the creaking doors, he was met with an eerie silence. A once vibrant and lively studio now echoed with the haunting remnants of children's laughter. The air was thick with an uncomfortable tension, and the dim lighting cast long, ominous shadows across the floor. As he explored the desolate corridors, Alex stumbled upon a costume room. The smell of decay and a strange, sticky substance clung to the air. The room was filled with an assortment of worn-out dinosaur suits, each seemingly imbued with an unsettling energy. Suddenly, the air grew colder, and a distant echo of a familiar tune reached Alex's ears. Confused but determined, Alex pressed on, following the haunting melody. The once bright set pieces and colorful props now seemed distorted and twisted, creating a nightmarish version of the beloved children's show. The echoes of laughter became more pronounced, but it was now accompanied by a guttural, unnatural undertone. With each step, Alex encountered the remnants of the former production team, now trapped in grotesque dinosaur suits, forever condemned to worship Barney. The explorer felt a shiver run down his spine as he realized the horrifying fate that had befallen the once joyful creators. As Alex delved deeper into the studio, he discovered a few survivors who had managed to create makeshift hideouts. They whispered tales of the cursed Barney and his transformed followers, warning him to turn back before it was too late. However, fueled by a mix of curiosity and bravery, Alex pressed forward. Finally, he reached the heart of the studio, where a monstrous, decayed Barney stood at the center of an unholy congregation. The once colorful set was now a twisted, nightmarish scene of perpetual celebration. The remaining staff turned into decaying abominations, mindlessly danced and sang the familiar tunes. Alex knew he had to put an end to this horror. With a determined resolve, he confronted the monstrous Barney, hoping to break the curse that bound the unfortunate souls within the suits. The air crackled with an eerie energy as he faced the undead dinosaur, ready to unveil the mystery behind the cursed PBS Kids studio. As Alex stood before the monstrous Barney, a sudden hush fell upon the eerie studio. The remaining survivors watched in fearful anticipation as he tried to reason with the decaying dinosaur. "You must stop. It's madness. Release these poor souls from their cursed fate," Alex pleaded, his voice echoing through the unsettling silence. The monstrous Barney, however, responded only with a guttural growl, its empty eye sockets fixed on Alex. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the room shifted, and the cursed followers of Barney began to close in on Alex. The survivors, who had once warned him to turn back, now revealed a sense of resignation in their eyes. One by one, the survivors were seized by the relentless, decaying hands of the transformed employees and forced into Barney's suits. Their anguished cries merged with the haunting melody of the twisted children's songs. The cursed dance resumed, and the survivors, now trapped within the suits, joined a grotesque congregation. Despite his best efforts to resist, Alex found himself overwhelmed by the relentless grasp of the cursed followers. In a nightmarish twist of fate, he too was forcibly stuffed into a Barney suit, the sticky, sludgy substance seeping into every crevice of his being. A once daring explorer now shared the same gruesome fate as those who had ventured into the studio before him. Inside the suffocating confines of the dinosaur suit, Alex could feel his humanity slipping away. His body decayed, and his consciousness merged with the malevolent force that controlled the cursed Barney. The once vibrant explorer was now a puppet, condemned to perpetually dance and sing alongside the other cursed souls. The abandoned PBS, its studio, now more desolate than ever, echoed with the haunting laughter and twisted tunes of the cursed congregation. A nightmare scene continued, undisturbed by the passage of time, as the cursed Barney and its grotesque followers carried on with their eternal, macabre celebration.
Months passed, and the cursed PBS Kids studio remained shrouded in darkness, a forbidden place with an unsettling reputation. Rumors of the cursed Barney and the unfortunate explorers who had succumbed to its malevolence spread far and wide. Despite the warnings, two foolhardy explorers named Mia and Ethan decided to venture into the haunted studio, driven by a morbid curiosity they couldn't shake. As they stepped through the creaking doors, the air became thick with an oppressive energy. The remnants of the former production team lay strewn across the studio, their decayed bodies fused with the grotesque dinosaur suits. Mia and Ethan cautiously pressed on, guided only by the distant echoes of eerie children's songs. The cursed atmosphere intensified as they approached the costume room. Mia's heart raced as she caught a glimpse of the worn-out dinosaur suits, each seeming to exude a malevolent force. Despite their growing unease, Mia and Ethan continued their exploration, oblivious to the fate that awaited them. As they delved deeper into the studio, the haunting melody grew louder, and the air resonated with an otherworldly presence. Shadows danced menacingly across the walls, and the echoes of laughter took on a sinister tone. Mia and Ethan stumbled upon the makeshift hideouts of the few survivors who warned them of the cursed Barney and the unavoidable doom that awaited them. Ignoring the survivors' pleas, Mia and Ethan pressed on toward the heart of the studio where the monstrous Barney awaited. The once colourful set now exuded an overwhelming sense of dread, and Mia felt a knot tighten in her stomach. They reached the center of the cursed congregation just as the monstrous Barney turned its empty gaze toward them. Mia and Ethan, paralyzed by fear, were quickly seized by the transformed followers. The survivors, now mere shells of their former selves, assisted in forcing the newcomers into Barney suits. As Mia and Ethan felt the sticky, sludgy substance enveloping them, panic set in. They joined the grotesque dance, their anguished cries harmonizing with the haunting tunes. The cursed Barney now had two more souls added to its macabre collection. As Mia and Ethan struggled against the grotesque dance orchestrated by the cursed Barney, they managed to break free for a fleeting moment. Seizing the opportunity, they stumbled away from the cursed congregation, leaving the malevolent force momentarily baffled. In a desperate bid for escape, Mia and Ethan traversed the desolate studio, the echoes of eerie children's songs fading into the distance. Guided by the whispers of the few remaining survivors, they discovered the secret shelters hidden within the studio's forgotten corners. The survivors, having witnessed the newcomers' struggle, welcomed them with a mix of pity and relief. The secret shelters, Makeshift havens amid the malevolence that permeated the studio housed the remnants of the production team who had managed to avoid the cursed fate. Mia and Ethan, still encased in their Bonnie suits, were accepted into the enclave of the traumatized survivors. Together, they lived in the shadows, sharing stories of their harrowing experiences and finding solace in their collective misery. The survivors had adapted to a life of perpetual hiding, cautiously avoiding the cursed congregation that roamed the studio. The twisted celebration of Bonnie continued unabated, echoing through the abandoned corridors. However, the survivors knew that their respite was temporary. The malevolent force that controlled the cursed Bonnie remained a constant threat, always seeking new souls to join its grotesque dance. Mia and Ethan, despite their escape from the cursed congregation, could feel the relentless pull of the malevolent force, a reminder that their freedom was fragile and fleeting. As the survivors huddled together in their secret shelters, the spectre of the cursed Bonnie loomed over them. The haunted PBS Kids studio, with its twisted celebration and grotesque inhabitants, remained a dark and foreboding place. The survivors, bound by their shared nightmare, clung to the hope that one day they might find a way to break free from the malevolent force that held them captive. Until then, they lived in the shadows, eternally haunted by the echoes of the twisted children's songs that echoed through the cursed studio.
In the world beyond the haunted PBS Kids studio, the tales of its cursed reputation persisted, carried by the whispers of those who had narrowly escaped its malevolent clutches. However, not everyone heeded the warnings. A new explorer, completely unaware of the dark history that plagued the abandoned studio, ventured into its ominous depths with the singular goal of creating a viral TikTok video. Armed with a smartphone and an unshakable desire for social media fame, the unsuspecting explorer Billy documented every step of his journey into the eerie studio. He gleefully filmed the remnants of the production set, occasionally striking goofy poses beside the twisted remains of once beloved characters. Unbeknownst to Billy, the malevolent force within the studio watched and waited, its hunger for new souls never sated. As Billy delved deeper into the heart of the cursed PBS Kids studio, the eerie children's songs faintly echoed in the background. In a sudden and chilling moment, the monstrous Barney turned its empty gaze toward Billy. The cursed followers, their decayed bodies fused with grotesque dinosaur suits, emerged from the shadows. Billy, caught up in the excitement of his TikTok venture, failed to recognize the danger that surrounded him. The malevolent force struck swiftly, seizing Billy and forcefully stuffing him into a dinosaur suit. The sticky, sludgy substance enveloped him, and the echoes of the twisted celebration resonated through the studio. However, something peculiar occurred this time. Billy did not join the grotesque congregation. The cursed Barney, having grown in power with each new victim, seemed to have reached a point where the malevolent force no longer needed to assimilate every soul into its twisted dance. Instead, Billy became a spectral observer, trapped within the dinosaur suit but spared from the relentless puppetry that controlled the cursed followers. The haunted PBS Kids studio, now a silent and desolate place, bore witness to the countless souls who had fallen victim to its malevolence. The twisted congregation continued their macabre celebration, forever trapped in their cursed forms. Yet, Billy, the unwitting TikTok explorer, lingered as a silent witness, a reminder of the studio's dark history and the folly of those who dared to seek fame within its cursed embrace.
Amidst the echoes of the cursed Barney's haunting melodies, word of the forbidden PBS Kids studio had reached the ears of another unsuspecting adventurer. Blissfully ignorant of the chilling tales that surrounded the abandoned place, a social media enthusiast named Emma set out with a determination to create the next viral sensation. Armed with a smartphone and a naive sense of invincibility, Emma recorded every step of her journey into the eerie studio. The remnants of the production set appeared merely as props in her quest for online fame. Unbeknownst to her, the malevolent force within the studio stirred, hungry for a fresh soul to join its twisted race of living dinosaur suits. Emma, drawn deeper into the heart of the cursed PBS Kids studio by the allure of her own potential fame, failed to heed the silent warnings that lingered in the air. As she approached the central chamber, the monstrous Barney turned its empty gaze toward her, and the cursed followers emerged from the shadows. In a nightmarish ballet, the malevolent force seized Emma, its grip unyielding as it began the grotesque process of stuffing her into a dinosaur suit.
The sticky, sludgy substance engulfed her, and the once vibrant adventurer felt her essence merging with the cursed force that controlled the studio. The conversion was agonizingly slow, each moment marked by a searing pain as Emma's body melted and rotted into the suit. Her screams echoed through the studio, but they were drowned out by the haunting children's songs that now seemed to celebrate her assimilation into the cursed suit. Emma, disoriented and traumatized, stumbled upon the shelter of the survivors, MIA, Ethan, and the silent presence of Billy. The shelter, once a refuge for the cursed, now welcomed a newcomer who had managed to escape the clutches of the malevolent force. As Emma, disheveled within her Dilophosaurus suit, communicated a silent plea for understanding, the survivors, recognizing the shared struggle, cautiously welcomed her into their peculiar family of the cursed. In the shadows of the makeshift shelter, the survivors huddled together, bound by the silent understanding of the horrors they had endured. The cursed PBS Kids studio, still echoing with the twisted celebration of the malevolent force, seemed to hold its breath as the survivors, now including Emma, faced the perpetual darkness that lurked beyond their fragile haven.
Unaware of Emma's recent venture into the cursed PBS Kids studio, her boyfriend, Mark, was determined to uncover the mysteries behind the malevolent force that tainted the once beloved Barney character. Driven by concern for Emma's sudden disappearance, Mark delved into the dark tales surrounding the abandoned studio, oblivious to the horrors that awaited him. Armed with a sense of purpose and a determination to rescue Emma, Mark stepped cautiously into the ominous depths of the studio. The air seemed to grow heavier with each step, and the remnants of the production set whispered unsettling tales of the cursed Barney. Mark pressed on, fueled by a mix of love and the misguided belief that he could uncover the truth and put an end to the malevolent force. As Mark ventured further into the haunted studio, the echoes of eerie children's songs grew louder. The malevolent force within sensed a new intruder, and the monstrous Barney turned its empty gaze toward him. The cursed followers emerged from the shadows, their decayed bodies poised to fulfill the malevolent force's insatiable hunger. In a cruel twist of fate, Mark found himself ensnared by the relentless grasp of the malevolent force. The transformation into a dinosaur suit was brutally slow, and Mark's desperate cries echoed through the studio. The sticky, sludgy substance enveloped him, his essence merging with the dark force that controlled the cursed Barney. Mark, now encased in a Triceratops suit, joined the grotesque congregation. His eyes, once filled with determination, were now hollow and haunted. The malevolent force, having claimed yet another soul, reveled in the twisted celebration that unfolded within the studio. The cursed Barney's distorted rendition of I Love You resonated through the desolate corridors, signaling the addition of another victim to its macabre collection. Emma, witnessing Mark's fate from within the shelter, felt a profound sense of sorrow as the malevolent force continued its puppetry. The haunted PBS Kids studio, now marked by the tormented souls of those who had ventured into its depths, carried on with its twisted legacy. The survivors, encased in their dinosaur suits, watched in silent despair as Mark became another chapter in the tragic history of the cursed Barney. The malevolent force's hunger remained insatiable, and the darkness within the studio endured, casting a perpetual shadow over the once bright world of children's television.
Determined to unravel the mysteries surrounding the cursed Barney and driven by a relentless pursuit of the truth, another explorer named Alex, unrelated to the previous character of the same name, entered the forsaken PBS Kids studio. Armed with a sense of purpose and a cautious optimism, Alex carefully navigated through the dimly lit corridors, hoping to uncover the key to putting an end to the malevolent force that haunted the studio. Through meticulous investigation, Alex stumbled upon ancient texts and hidden symbols that hinted at a ritual capable of breaking the malevolent force's hold on the cursed Barney. His excitement grew as he believed he was closing in on a solution that could free the tormented souls within the dinosaur suits. However, the malevolent force, sensing a threat to its dark dominion, hastened its response. The monstrous Barney, fueled by the malevolent energy and driven by a relentless determination to preserve its cursed existence, closed in on Alex. The eerie children's songs echoed louder as the cursed followers emerged from the shadows. In a desperate attempt to silence the potential threat, the malevolent force seized Alex and swiftly stuffed him into a dinosaur suit. The sticky, sludgy substance enveloped Alex, melting and rotting his corpse into the suit. The malevolent force, satisfied with the completion of its congregation, spared Alex from joining the grotesque celebration. As the malevolent force turned its attention back to its dark domain, Alex, now encased in the Ankylosaurus suit, found himself alone in the desolate studio. A sense of relief washed over him as he realized he had escaped the fate of perpetual puppetry that awaited those in the cursed congregation. Driven by a newfound sense of purpose, Alex sought out the shelter where the other survivors had found refuge. The silent pact among the cursed souls within the shelter, including Emma, Mia, Ethan, and the silent observer Billy, shifted as they welcomed Alex, the Ankylosaurus-suited explorer. United by their shared torment and the desire to break free from the malevolent force's grasp, the survivors huddled together in the shadows. The haunted PBS Kids studio, now seemingly complete in its cursed congregation, awaited the next chapter in its dark and twisted legacy.
As the cursed Barney and his completed congregation broke free from the confines of the haunted PBS Kids studio, a malevolent darkness spread like a suffocating fog, engulfing the unsuspecting town that lay beyond. The twisted celebration echoed through the streets as the cursed followers, encased in various dinosaur suits, carried out the bidding of the malevolent force. Barney, now a nightmarish puppeteer, reveled in the chaos that unfolded. The haunting echoes of his distorted rendition of I Love You reached every corner of the town. A sinister melody that heralded the arrival of a malevolent force bent on torment and domination. The once joyful town became a desolate landscape of horror as people were forcibly transformed into dinosaur suits, their humanity stripped away. The malevolent force, now unhinged and empowered by the completed congregation, sought to expand its influence beyond the confines of the studio. Barney's twisted plan unfolded with calculated precision. The cursed congregation, under the puppetry of the malevolent force, roamed the town, forcing unsuspecting residents into dinosaur suits. The once bustling streets became a haunting tableau of agony and despair as the cursed followers enacted the malevolent force's cruel vision. As the malevolent force's influence spread, the survivors within the shelter, including Alex, Emma, Mia, Ethan, and the silent observer Billy, realized the gravity of the situation. The studio, once their prison, had become a launching pad for a sinister plot to take over the entire town. United by a desperate need to stop the malevolent force from further tormenting the town, the survivors ventured into the chaos that had consumed their once normal lives. The cursed Barney, now an unholy puppet master, reveled in the suffering he wrought upon the unsuspecting residents, his malevolent laughter echoing through the desolate streets. The malevolent force, channeled through the dark puppetry of the cursed Barney, spread like a virulent plague, reaching far beyond the town and engulfing the entire state of Wisconsin. The once thriving state fell into a nightmarish abyss as the twisted celebration echoed through cities and countryside alike. As news of the malevolent force's takeover spread, the National Guard mobilized, deploying tanks, artillery, and other weaponry in a desperate attempt to halt Barney's unholy conquest. The forces clashed in a nightmarish battle, but the cursed congregation, now armed with a twisted form of free will, proved to be a formidable adversary. The National Guard's efforts failed miserably, with the malevolent force's dark influence overpowering their defenses. Tanks crumbled like toys, and soldiers faced a horrific fate as they succumbed to the malevolent puppetry. The once organized military force became a grotesque spectacle as soldiers transformed into living dinosaur suits, their free will retained but forever bound to the twisted legacy of the cursed Barney. The malevolent force, now empowered by the state's complete submission, continued its relentless march. Cities fell into disarray as the cursed congregation roamed freely, imposing its dark will on the residents who were transformed into living dinosaur suits. The haunting echoes of the distorted I Love You song became the anthem of despair, resonating through the once proud state. As the survivors within the shelter, including Alex, Emma, Mia, Ethan, and Billy, witnessed the devastation unfold, a somber realization settled upon them. The malevolent force had grown beyond their ability to control, and the twisted legacy of Barney had become a force of unimaginable darkness. The living dinosaur suits, now possessing free will, faced the daunting challenge of navigating their existence in a world forever changed by the malevolent force. Families were torn apart, communities were shattered, and the once vibrant state of Wisconsin became a haunting landscape of sorrow and despair.
The malevolent force, channeled through the unholy puppetry of Barney and his twisted congregation, continued its relentless march across the United States. Cities and towns fell like dominoes as the cursed followers imposed their dark will, transforming each state they traversed into living dinosaur suit utopias. The once vibrant landscapes now echoed with the haunting melodies of the distorted I Love You song. The malevolent force, empowered by the submission of entire states, set its sights on the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. The cursed congregation, an ever-growing army of living dinosaur suits with twisted free will, approached the heart of the country with an insatiable hunger for domination. As the malevolent force encroached upon the nation's capital, chaos ensued. The residents of Washington, D.C., witnessed the unimaginable transformation of their city into a haunting dinosaur suit utopia. The National Mall, once a symbol of democracy, became a nightmarish scene as the cursed followers imposed their dark puppetry on those who stood in their way. The living dinosaur suits, now free-willed but forever bound to the malevolent force's twisted legacy, roamed the streets with an eerie sense of purpose. Families torn apart, government officials transformed, and iconic landmarks became part of the malevolent force's ever-growing domain. News of the malevolent force's march reached the highest echelons of government. World leaders, horrified by the unfolding calamity, scrambled to devise a strategy to confront the unholy puppeteer, but the malevolent force seemed unstoppable. The twisted utopias created along the way had become bastions of despair, and the haunting echoes of the distorted I Love You song seemed to mock the futile resistance. The twisted legacy of Barney had become a force of apocalyptic proportions, reshaping the very fabric of the nation. As the malevolent force, embodied by the cursed Barney and his twisted congregation, reached the pinnacle of its dark conquest, the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., fell under its shadow. The once resilient bastion of democracy crumbled as the malevolent force imposed its will, transforming the highest echelons of government into living dinosaur suits. The president, a symbol of authority and leadership, succumbed to the malevolent puppetry. The haunting echoes of the distorted I Love You song resonated through the halls of power as the leader of the nation became yet another puppet in Barney's perverse utopia. With Washington, D.C., now firmly under its control, the malevolent force extended its influence beyond the borders of the United States. Canada and Mexico, once sovereign nations, became ensnared in the malevolent force's grasp. The twisted congregation, now an unstoppable force, marched through these countries, creating living dinosaur suit utopias in their wake. As the malevolent force spread its dark influence, the living dinosaur suits who were once humans found themselves segregated into classes based on the specific dinosaur suits they inhabited. The hierarchical structure mirrored the twisted hierarchy of the cursed Barney's congregation. Those in more ferocious or imposing suits assumed positions of perceived superiority, while others, encased in seemingly less intimidating forms, occupied lower tiers. Within the dinosaur suit society, there were internal struggles, power plays, and a constant undercurrent of fear. The twisted legacy of Barney had shaped not only the physical form of the inhabitants but also the societal structures that governed their new existence.
The malevolent force, led by the cursed Barney and his twisted congregation, continued its relentless march, expanding its dark influence beyond the transformed nation. The Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea became the next targets of the malevolent force's conquest. Nations such as Cuba, Haiti, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, and others found themselves engulfed by the haunting echoes of the distorted I Love You song. As the malevolent force's presence spread across these vibrant and diverse nations, the military forces mobilized in a desperate attempt to resist the encroaching darkness. However, the twisted congregation, with its maleficent power, proved too formidable. Even the most valiant efforts of the military forces ended in defeat, with soldiers succumbing to the malevolent puppetry orchestrated by Barney. One by one, the nations of the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea fell into the grip of the malevolent force. The streets of Havana, Port-au-Prince, Kingston, San Juan, and other once bustling cities became haunting landscapes, filled with the eerie presence of living dinosaur suits. The malevolent force spared no one, melting the inhabitants into grotesque forms as they became part of the twisted congregation. The global community, already reeling from the unsettling events in the transformed nation, watched in horror as the malevolent force's conquest extended to new shores. Nations far and wide were paralyzed with fear, uncertain about how to combat a supernatural threat that defied all known conventions. The twisted utopias created in the wake of the malevolent force's influence spread across the islands, shaping a surreal and nightmarish world. The living dinosaur suits, once vibrant inhabitants of these nations, now navigated their existence in a society dictated by the malevolent force's dark puppetry. The international community faced an unprecedented crisis as the malevolent force reshaped entire nations into living dinosaur suit utopias. Governments grappled with the inexplicable and the supernatural, seeking answers and solutions to counter the malevolent force's relentless advance. As the malevolent force's conquest showed no signs of abating, the world stood on the precipice of a global catastrophe. The living dinosaur suits, now representing a twisted congregation that spanned continents, marched forward under the malevolent force's dark banner, leaving a trail of despair and transformation in their wake. The fate of humanity hung in the balance as the malevolent force's dark influence spread across the globe.
As the malevolent force, embodied by Barney and his twisted congregation, expanded its dark influence across the nations of Central America, the once vibrant lands succumbed to a surreal transformation. Governments, military forces, and desperate inhabitants attempted to resist the malevolent force's relentless advance, but each attempt proved futile. The haunting echoes of the distorted "I Love You" song resonated through the Central American landscapes as Barney and the twisted congregation, now an unstoppable force, overwhelmed all resistance. From the dense rainforests to the bustling city streets, the malevolent force left its mark, turning every corner of Central America into a living dinosaur suit utopia. Relentless in its conquest, the malevolent force compelled individuals to relinquish their resistance and join the twisted congregation willingly. The once diverse array of inhabitants, whether military personnel or ordinary citizens, melted into the living dinosaur suits that now populated the Central American landscapes. Governments fell, armies crumbled, and entire populations were assimilated into the malevolent force's puppetry. The international community, witnessing the unfolding calamity, stood helpless against the supernatural force that defied all conventional understanding. As the twisted utopia expanded across Central America, the living dinosaur suits moved in unison, their actions synchronized by the malevolent force's influence. The once unique individuals, including the survivors, became indistinguishable from the crowd, their identities submerged in the collective consciousness of the twisted congregation. The global community, already paralyzed by fear and uncertainty, now faced the overwhelming reality that the malevolent force had conquered entire regions. The living dinosaur suits, now a united force under the malevolent banner of Barney, continued their relentless march, leaving a trail of transformed nations in their wake. The fate of Central America mirrored that of the previously transformed nations, as the malevolent force reshaped the very fabric of societies. The once proud nations became haunting reflections of the malevolent force's power, and the world braced itself for an uncertain future as the malevolent force's dark influence spread unabated. The living dinosaur suits, once vibrant individuals with unique stories, were now mere puppets in the malevolent force's twisted narrative, and the twisted utopia expanded its dominion with each passing moment.
The fall of America and the nations of Central America sent shockwaves across the globe, prompting China to respond with a sense of urgency. Witnessing the malevolent force's dark conquest and the transformation of entire nations into living dinosaur suits, the Chinese government mobilized its military to counter the threat. Believing they could resist the malevolent force's puppetry, China, armed with the might of their military force, launched a large-scale offensive against the twisted nation led by Barney. The world held its breath as the clash between the conventional military might of China and the supernatural forces unfolded on an unprecedented scale. At first, the Chinese military seemed to make headway. They fought valiantly against the twisted congregation, employing advanced weaponry and strategic tactics to resist the relentless march of the living dinosaur suits. However, the malevolent force, fueled by the twisted celebration and the echoes of Barney's distorted melodies, proved to be an insurmountable adversary. Despite the military's initial successes, the supernatural power of the malevolent force began to turn the tide. Soldiers in the field, one by one, succumbed to the dark influence, transforming into living dinosaur suits. China, once a formidable force on the global stage, found itself facing the same fate that had befallen America and the nations of Central America. The malevolent force, unstoppable in its quest for dominance, breached Chinese borders, leaving a trail of transformation in its wake. Cities across China witnessed the haunting spectacle of their citizens melting into living dinosaur suits, their individual identities submerged into the twisted congregation. The once bustling metropolises became surreal landscapes, echoing with the distorted "I Love You" song as the malevolent force's dominion extended its reach. The global community, reeling from the successive falls of nations, now faced an unimaginable reality. The malevolent force, under Barney's maleficent guidance, had triumphed over conventional military might. The transformed world, now spanning continents, became a testament to the supernatural forces that defied human understanding. As the malevolent force extended its reach, the twisted utopia continued to reshape societies. The living dinosaur suits, once proud citizens of various countries, now shared a collective fate, a fate dictated by the malevolent force that had become the puppeteer of their existence.
As the malevolent force, guided by Barney and his twisted congregation, expanded its dark dominion across the continents, it set its sights on the vast expanses of Mongolia and Kazakhstan. The once serene landscapes, known for their open steppes and rugged terrains, now bore witness to the encroaching darkness. Mongolia and Kazakhstan, with their comparatively smaller populations and less formidable military forces, offered little resistance against the malevolent force's relentless advance. The haunting echoes of the distorted "I Love You" song resonated across the desolate landscapes as the living dinosaur suits, once proud inhabitants of these nations, became assimilated into the twisted congregation. In Mongolia, the nomadic traditions and the Gobi Desert were transformed into surreal backdrops for the malevolent force's puppetry. The yurts, once symbols of a rich cultural heritage, now stood empty as the inhabitants melted into living dinosaur suits, their identity subsumed into the collective consciousness dictated by Barney. Kazakhstan, with its vast steppes and diverse communities, faced a similar fate. The once thriving cities of Almaty and Nur-Sultan became haunting landscapes, their streets filled with the eerie presence of the twisted congregation. The malevolent force's influence spared no one, and resistance crumbled in the face of supernatural power. As the malevolent force extended its reach into these Central Asian nations, the global community watched with a sense of dread. The ease with which the malevolent force conquered Mongolia and Kazakhstan heightened the realization that no corner of the world was immune to its dark influence. The twisted utopia, now spanning multiple continents, blurred the lines between borders and cultures, leaving an indelible mark on the transformed world. The malevolent force's dominion continued to reshape societies, leaving a trail of despair and transformation wherever it went. As it conquered Mongolia and Kazakhstan, the living dinosaur suits, once free and vibrant individuals, now moved in unison with the twisted congregation, their actions synchronized by the malevolent force's dark puppetry. The fate of Mongolia and Kazakhstan echoed that of nations before them, becoming haunting reflections of the malevolent force's power. The living dinosaur suits, once diverse inhabitants with unique stories, were now mere puppets in the malevolent force's twisted narrative, and the twisted utopia expanded its dominion with each new conquest.
In the midst of the malevolent force's dark conquest, a young boy from America, named Max, emerged as an unlikely survivor. He had witnessed the fall of his homeland, the transformation of his family and friends, and the haunting takeover by Barney and his twisted congregation. Determined to escape the living nightmare that now covered the world, Max set his sights on reaching Russia, one of the few remaining nations yet untouched by the malevolent force's influence. Max, moving with caution and stealth, navigated through the transformed landscapes of Central Asia. The once bustling cities, now silent except for the echoes of the distorted "I Love You" song, became a haunting backdrop for his journey. Guided by survival instincts, Max managed to avoid the gaze of the living dinosaur suits and the malevolent force that controlled them. Using his resourcefulness and resilience, Max crossed borders, traversed desolate landscapes, and bypassed areas where the twisted congregation held sway. He moved in the shadows, always on the lookout for any signs of the malevolent force's presence. Upon reaching the border between Kazakhstan and Russia, Max faced a daunting challenge. The malevolent force's influence loomed large, and he had to carefully navigate the transition from one transformed nation to the untouched territory beyond. Max, relying on his wits and a deep understanding of the malevolent force's patterns, found a way to slip through the border undetected. The transition marked a symbolic shift, from a world dominated by living dinosaur suits and the malevolent force to the relative safety of a nation that remained untouched. Russia, with its vast expanse and diverse landscapes, offered a glimmer of hope for Max. The untouched cities and untouched citizens presented a stark contrast to the transformed nations he had left behind. However, Max knew that the malevolent force could spread, and he remained vigilant, aware that the twisted utopia might encroach upon new territories. The survivors Max encountered were wary but open to his story, realizing the gravity of the situation that had befallen the world. Max, now in the heart of a nation untouched by the malevolent force, became a symbol of resistance and hope. His journey from the transformed America to the still free Russia underscored the gravity of the supernatural threat that loomed over the entire world. As Max shared his experiences and knowledge with the remaining survivors in Russia, they faced an uncertain future. The malevolent force, with its twisted congregation, continued its relentless march, leaving transformed nations in its wake. Max's successful defection to Russia marked a small victory against the overwhelming darkness, but the battle for humanity's survival was far from over. The world waited, with bated breath, to see if any corner would remain untouched by the malevolent force's insidious influence.
In the heart of Russia, Max's journey led him to a chance encounter with Yeva, a local Russian. Despite the language barrier, the shared experiences of loss and the looming threat of the malevolent force forged a unique bond between them. Communication became a blend of gestures, expressions, and a universal understanding of the dark reality that enveloped their world. Yeva, with her resourcefulness and knowledge of the local terrain, proved to be an invaluable ally for Max. Together, they embarked on a mission to prepare a defense against Barney's grasp. They sought refuge in bunkers, away from the malevolent force's known influence, studying patterns and devising strategies to resist the inevitable encroachment. As Max and Yeva gathered a small group of survivors in their makeshift sanctuary, they shared stories of the fallen nations and the relentless march of the malevolent force. The survivors, representing different corners of Russia, united under the common goal of resisting the twisted congregation. While Max and Yeva worked on building defenses, the malevolent force continued its dark conquest. The whole of South America, the last of the Americas, succumbed to the haunting echoes of Barney's distorted melodies. Nation after nation fell, and every citizen melted into living dinosaur suits, becoming part of the twisted congregation. As Max and Yeva developed a friendship rooted in shared adversity, their collaboration became a symbol of hope. They communicated not only through shared words but through actions and an unspoken understanding of their mission. The survivors, united by Max and Yeva's leadership, stood ready to face the encroaching darkness. As Barney's twisted congregation advanced, Max, Yeva, and their group prepared to confront the supernatural threat. The fate of their sanctuary and the entire nation hung in the balance as the survivors braced themselves for the inevitable clash against the malevolent force's dark dominion.
As Max and Yeva continued to fortify their sanctuary and prepare for the imminent confrontation with the malevolent force in Russia, they stumbled upon a cryptic piece of information, a secret Russian attempt to escape Earth and establish a new life on an untouched exoplanet light years away. The revelation sparked a mix of emotions in the survivors. The idea of abandoning Earth seemed drastic, but faced with the overwhelming darkness that Barney's malevolent force had spread, it also offered a glimmer of hope. Max and Yeva, driven by the desire to secure a future for humanity, decided to investigate further and learn more about the secretive exoplanet project. As they delved into the details, they discovered that the Russian government, in collaboration with scientists and engineers, had been working on a covert mission to transport a select group of individuals to the distant exoplanet. The exoplanet, deemed suitable for life, represented a last-ditch effort to escape the malevolent force's grasp and ensure the survival of the human race. As Max and Yeva navigated the complexities of the secretive project, the malevolent force's war with the UK erupted on the global stage. Barney, with his twisted congregation, unleashed a dark and supernatural war that spread across the British Isles. The once thriving cities of London, Edinburgh, and Belfast became battlegrounds,
echoing with the eerie echoes of the distorted I Love You song. The UK's military, though valiant in their efforts, succumbed to the malevolent force's influence. Soldiers transformed into living dinosaur suits, and the iconic landmarks bore witness to the twisted utopia taking hold. The malevolent force's dark dominion extended its reach, overpowering the collective resistance of the United Kingdom. France, witnessing the conflict across the English Channel, attempted to intervene and aid their British allies. However, despite their best efforts, the malevolent force's insidious influence proved unstoppable. The streets of Paris, the vineyards of Bordeaux, and the picturesque landscapes of Provence all fell prey to the same fate that had befallen other nations. As the war with the UK and France unfolded, Max and Yeva grappled with the ethical dilemma of whether to join the secretive exoplanet mission or stay and fight for Earth. The survivors in their sanctuary faced a similar dilemma, torn between the potential safety of a new world and the desire to resist the malevolent force's tyranny. While the malevolent force continued its war across Europe, Max, Yeva, and the survivors faced a pivotal decision that would shape the future of humanity. The clash between the malevolent force and those who dared to resist intensified, leaving the fate of Earth hanging in the balance.
As the malevolent force's war raged across Europe, Max found himself captured by Barney's spies. The shadows of the twisted congregation closed in on him, and he was whisked away to an unknown location. Meanwhile, Yeva, determined to rescue Max, embarked on a perilous journey to uncover the whereabouts of her friend. The malevolent force's influence had now spread to involve Germany, Italy, and Denmark. These nations, united against the supernatural threat posed by Barney and his twisted congregation, fought valiantly to protect their citizens and preserve their cultural heritage. Yet, despite their best efforts, the malevolent force's dark puppetry proved overwhelming. In Germany, the bustling streets of Berlin and the historic landscapes of Bavaria were transformed into haunting scenes of the twisted utopia. The German military, renowned for its discipline and resilience, succumbed to the malevolent force's influence. The iconic Brandenburg Gate and Neuschwanstein Castle became silent witnesses to the malevolent force's conquest. Italy, with its rich history and vibrant cities, faced a similar fate. The Colosseum in Rome and the canals of Venice echoed with the eerie silence of the transformed nation. The malevolent force's insidious influence spared no corner of the boot-shaped peninsula, leaving the once proud citizens to join the ranks of the living dinosaur suits. Denmark, known for its picturesque landscapes and progressive society, also fell under the malevolent force's dark dominion. The streets of Copenhagen and the historic sites like Kronborg Castle became scenes of surreal transformation. Despite Denmark's resilience, the malevolent force's supernatural power proved too formidable. As Yeva searched for clues about Max's whereabouts, the twisted utopia expanded its reach. The malevolent force, having conquered Germany, Italy, and Denmark, continued its relentless march, leaving a trail of despair across Europe. Yeva, undeterred by the overwhelming darkness, pressed on in her quest to rescue Max and unite the survivors against the malevolent force. The remaining nations of the world watched in horror as Europe succumbed to Barney's twisted empire. The malevolent force, now controlling vast territories, set its sights on new conquests. As Yeva navigated the transformed landscapes, her determination became a beacon of hope amidst the encroaching darkness, a hope that the survivors still clung to as they faced an uncertain future under the malevolent banner of Barney.
Max found himself confined in a dimly lit room, surrounded by living dinosaur suits that acted as the malevolent force's interrogators. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity as they sought information about the resistance in Russia. Max, resilient and determined, refused to yield to their demands, but the malevolent force's influence weighed heavily on him. Back in Russia, Yeva had gathered a small group of survivors and learned of Max's capture. Unwilling to leave her friend at the mercy of the twisted congregation, she devised a daring plan for a prison break. Yeva's leadership and determination inspired those around her, and together, they set out on a perilous journey to rescue Max. The malevolent force, now in control of vast territories across Europe, had established prisons where captured individuals were transformed into living dinosaur suits, their identities erased. Yeva and her group infiltrated one of these prisons, navigating the darkened corridors and avoiding the gaze of the malevolent force's minions. As they approached the room where Max was being held, Yeva encountered various challenges. The malevolent force's influence created illusions and traps, testing the resolve of those attempting to defy its dark dominion. Yeva's determination, however, proved unwavering, and she pressed on with a singular focus on rescuing Max. The prison break unfolded as a high-stakes mission, with Yeva leading the charge. The living dinosaur suits, once guards and prisoners, now became obstacles in their path. Yeva's group fought with tenacity, utilizing their knowledge of the malevolent force's patterns and weaknesses. In the interrogation room, Max's spirits lifted as he heard the distant sounds of a struggle. Yeva burst into the room, a beacon of hope amidst the oppressive darkness. The malevolent force's minions, momentarily caught off guard, faced fierce resistance from Yeva and her group. A fierce battle ensued as Yeva fought to free Max. The malevolent force, sensing a threat to its plans, amplified its influence, creating illusions and distortions to disorient Yeva and her allies. Yet, their determination prevailed. As the prison break reached its climax, Yeva and Max, reunited against all odds, led the survivors in a daring escape. The malevolent force's illusions crumbled in the face of their resilience, and they emerged into the night, leaving the transformed prison behind. Back in Russia, the survivors welcomed Max and Yeva with a mix of relief and renewed hope. The prison break had not only saved a friend but also fueled the determination to resist the malevolent force's influence. Max, with newfound strength, shared the information he had gleaned during his captivity, helping Yeva and the survivors refine their strategies for the impending confrontation. The malevolent force, now aware of the growing resistance, intensified its efforts to crush any semblance of rebellion. The war between the twisted congregation and the remaining pockets of humanity escalated, with the fate of Earth hanging in the balance. Yet, the prison break had proven that even in the darkest of times, a spark of defiance could ignite a flame of resistance.
As Barney's malevolent force expanded its dark dominion to Scandinavia, the once picturesque landscapes of Sweden, Norway, and Finland became battlegrounds for a supernatural war. The Nordic nations, known for their resilience and strong sense of identity, faced an unprecedented threat that transcended the bounds of reality. The Scandinavian military forces, renowned for their strategic prowess and advanced technology, mobilized to counter the malevolent force's encroachment. However, the twisted congregation, fueled by Barney's supernatural power, proved too formidable. Despite valiant efforts, the Nordic armies succumbed to the malevolent force, transforming into living dinosaur suits that patrolled the snow-covered landscapes. As the malevolent force's influence spread across Scandinavia, Max, Yeva, and the Russian government grappled with the critical decision of whether to stand and defend Earth or embark on the distant exoplanet mission. The survivors in Russia, having witnessed the malevolent force's relentless advance, were divided on the best course of action. Max, having experienced the malevolent force's cruelty firsthand, leaned towards standing and defending Earth. Yeva, fueled by her determination to protect humanity, wavered between the two options. The Russian government, aware of the growing resistance and the malevolent force's unstoppable conquest, faced the weighty responsibility of deciding the fate of their nation. As discussions unfolded, the survivors weighed the potential safety of the distant exoplanet against the desire to resist the malevolent force's tyranny. The decision carried profound implications for the future of humanity. Each moment felt like a ticking clock, counting down to an inevitable confrontation with Barney's twisted congregation. In Scandinavia, the malevolent force solidified its control over the Nordic nations, leaving the iconic landmarks of Stockholm, Oslo, and Helsinki silent witnesses to the twisted utopia that had engulfed the world. The once vibrant cultures of these nations were replaced by the haunting echoes of the distorted "I Love You" song. As the malevolent force continued its conquest, the survivors in Russia faced a pivotal moment. The decision they made would not only determine their own fate, but also shape the destiny of humanity. The distant exoplanet mission represented a potential escape from the malevolent force's reach, but standing and defending Earth carried the weight of preserving their home and resisting the darkness that sought to consume it. In the shadow of the malevolent force's relentless advance, Max, Yeva, and the Russian government grappled with the choice that would define the fate of Earth and its remaining inhabitants. The war between the twisted congregation and those who dared to defy them intensified, leaving the world on the brink of a cataclysmic confrontation.
As the malevolent force continued its conquest, Max and Yeva's relationship deepened amidst the chaos. Their bond became a source of strength for the survivors in Russia, fostering a sense of unity in the face of the encroaching darkness. Together, Max and Yeva emerged as leaders, guiding the survivors through the tumultuous journey of resisting the malevolent force. The decision to make their way to the distant exoplanet became the primary goal for Max, Yeva, and the Russian government. Recognizing the urgency of their situation, Russia initiated the construction of a rocket capable of transporting a select group of individuals to the untouched exoplanet. The collaborative effort involved scientists, engineers, and the remaining survivors pooling their resources for this monumental endeavor. While preparations were underway for the exoplanet mission, the malevolent force set its sights on the Iberian Peninsula and North Africa. Spain, Portugal, Morocco, and Algeria faced an onslaught of supernatural invasion as Barney's twisted congregation spread its influence. In Spain, the vibrant streets of Barcelona, the historic Alhambra, and the lively flamenco performances succumbed to the haunting transformation. The malevolent force's insidious influence swept through the country, leaving a surreal landscape of living dinosaur suits in its wake. Portugal, with its picturesque landscapes and historic sites, witnessed the malevolent force's relentless advance. The iconic Belém Tower and the cobbled streets of Lisbon became silent witnesses to the twisted utopia that replaced the once thriving culture. Across the Strait of Gibraltar, Morocco and Algeria faced a similar fate. The ancient Medinas of Marrakesh and the historic town of Oran crumbled under the malevolent force's supernatural power. The twisted congregation, now spanning continents, left no corner untouched. As Spain, Portugal, Morocco, and Algeria fell to Barney's grasp, the survivors in Russia intensified their efforts to complete the rocket and embark on the journey to the distant exoplanet. The decision to escape Earth, tainted by the malevolent force's tyranny, became an imperative for those who sought a chance at survival and a new beginning. Max and Yeva's relationship served as an anchor for the survivors, a reminder that amidst the darkness, a glimmer of hope still existed. As the rocket neared completion, the survivors faced the daunting task of leaving their home behind and venturing into the unknown. The exoplanet represented a sanctuary away from the malevolent force's influence, but the journey ahead remained fraught with challenges and uncertainties. The war between the twisted congregation and the remnants of humanity approached a climactic showdown, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance.
Barney's malevolent force, fueled by supernatural power in the twisted congregation, continued its relentless march, engulfing the entire continent of Europe and extending its reach into Egypt. The iconic landmarks, diverse cultures, and historic sites became mere echoes of the past as the malevolent force's influence spread like a dark plague. From the snow-covered expanses of Scandinavia to the sun-drenched Mediterranean shores, Europe succumbed to the haunting transformation. The malevolent force's war reached every corner, leaving the once thriving cities, cultural centers, and historic landscapes devoid of life as living dinosaur suits patrolled the desolate streets. The twisted congregation now controlled the central market hall in Hungary, the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, the Acropolis in Athens, and every other significant symbol of European heritage. The malevolent force's dark dominion erased the diversity that once defined the continent, replacing it with a twisted utopia governed by the haunting echoes of Barney's distorted melodies. In Egypt, the pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx bore witness to the malevolent force's relentless advance. The Nile, once the lifeblood of a flourishing civilization, now reflected the surreal transformation as living dinosaur suits moved along its banks. The ancient temples and bustling markets fell silent under the malevolent force's dark puppetry.
Barney's malevolent force, extending its reach across the globe, targeted new territories in its relentless conquest. Half of Australia, South Africa, and various other nations in the southern hemisphere succumbed to the haunting transformation. The malevolent force's supernatural influence reached the vast landscapes of the Australian outback, the bustling cities of Johannesburg and Cape Town, and other regions where the distorted echoes of Barney's melodies replaced the once familiar sounds of life. In Australia, iconic landmarks such as the Sydney Opera House and the Great Barrier Reef became silent witnesses to the twisted utopia that now enveloped the continent. The Australian military, known for its resilience and resourcefulness, fought valiantly but ultimately fell to the malevolent force's overwhelming power. The living dinosaur suits now patrolled the vast and diverse terrains, leaving Australia in a state of surreal desolation. South Africa, with its rich cultural heritage and diverse landscapes, faced a similar fate. The Table Mountain overlooking Cape Town and the historic sites of Johannesburg became eerie backdrops to the malevolent force's conquest. The once vibrant cities and natural wonders were now under the oppressive rule of Barney's twisted congregation. The malevolent force also targeted other countries in the southern hemisphere, spreading its influence across continents. The survivors in these regions, already grappling with the aftermath of the twisted utopia, joined forces to resist the malevolent force's encroachment. However, the twisted congregation proved relentless, leaving nations in the southern hemisphere to share the same fate as those that had fallen before them. As the malevolent force advanced, it set its sights on Vladivostok, Yeva's hometown in the Russian Far East. The bustling port city, known for its strategic importance and cultural significance, faced an ominous transformation. The Trans-Siberian Railway became a haunting path for living dinosaur suits as they patrolled the once bustling transportation route. Yeva, with a heavy heart, witnessed the malevolent force's influence reaching her hometown. The memories of Vladivostok's vibrant streets now faded into the desolate echoes of the twisted utopia. The survivors in Vladivostok, including Yeva's family and friends, faced the same dire circumstances as the malevolent force tightened its grip on the city. In the face of these relentless challenges, the Russian government intensified their efforts to complete the rocket for the exoplanet mission. Max, Yeva, and the remnants of humanity recognized that their window for escape was narrowing, and the decision to leave Earth became more urgent than ever. The war between the twisted congregation and the resistance reached a pivotal moment as the survivors prepared for the final stages of their journey into the unknown.
In a desperate attempt to evade Barney's malevolent force, Max and Yeva, along with a group of survivors, retreated to the outskirts of Moscow. The once thriving capital stood as a last bastion of resistance in Eastern Europe. Barney's influence had spread like a dark stain across Eastern Russia, claiming vast territories and leaving them silent and lifeless. The Siberian wilderness, once untouched by the malevolent force, now echoed with the haunting sounds of living dinosaur suits patrolling the snow-covered landscapes. Australia, Japan, South Korea, North Korea, India, and the nations of Southeast and Southwest Asia had all succumbed to the oppressive rule of Barney's twisted congregation. The iconic landmarks, diverse cultures, and vibrant cities of these regions now bore the scars of the malevolent force's conquest. In Australia, the Sydney Opera House and the Great Barrier Reef were now haunting symbols of the twisted utopia. The vast landscapes of the outback, once teeming with life, were now patrolled by living dinosaur suits that roamed with an eerie purpose. Japan, known for its rich traditions and technological advancements, faced a surreal transformation. The historic temples of Kyoto and the bustling streets of Tokyo now reflected the malevolent force's dark dominion. The once thriving societies succumbed to the twisted influence, leaving the nation in a state of silent despair. South Korea and North Korea, separated by political differences, shared a common fate under Barney's rule. The vibrant cityscape of Seoul and the historic sites of Pyongyang became silent witnesses to the malevolent force's relentless advance. The Korean peninsula, once divided, now stood united in the twisted congregation's grasp. India, with its diverse landscapes and rich cultural tapestry, faced a similar fate. The Taj Mahal and the bustling cities of Mumbai and New Delhi now existed in a state of surreal desolation. The malevolent force's conquest left a profound impact on the subcontinent, erasing the vibrancy that once defined its identity. The nations of Southeast and Southwest Asia, including the bustling metropolises of Bangkok, Singapore, Jakarta, and Manila fell victim to Barney's twisted influence. The once thriving economies and cultural hubs were now silent testaments to the malevolent force's insidious control. As Max, Yeva, and the survivors retreated to the outskirts of Moscow, they witnessed the relentless expansion of Barney's dark dominion. The fate of Earth hung in the balance as the survivors faced the stark reality that the malevolent force's influence was closing in on their last refuge. In the shadow of the Moscow skyline, the remnants of humanity prepared for a final stand against Barney's twisted congregation. The rocket, their last hope for escape, neared completion. But the challenges ahead were formidable. The war between the resistance and the malevolent force approached its zenith, and the fate of Earth teetered on the brink of a cataclysmic confrontation.
As Max, Yeva, and the few remaining Russians sought refuge in the last bunker of mankind, the once proud city of Moscow fell to Barney's twisted congregation. The iconic landmarks and historic sites of the capital now echoed with the haunting sounds of living dinosaur suits patrolling the desolate streets. Within the confines of the bunker, a heavy silence hung in the air. The survivors, huddled together in a dimly lit chamber, exchanged glances filled with a mix of sorrow and defiance. The knowledge that they were among the last humans left on Earth weighed heavily on their hearts. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the bunker. It wasn't the oppressive sound of the twisted congregation, but rather the unmistakable melody of Barney's song, "I Love You." The twisted force, aware of the survivors' presence, sent a mocking serenade through a mega speaker system. The once familiar tune now carried a sinister undertone, a haunting reminder of the innocence that had been perverted. The lyrics were distorted, the melody warped, and the song echoed through the bunker with a malevolent intent. Barney's voice, now a twisted mockery of the beloved children's character, resonated through the walls. The survivors, huddled in the bunker, felt a chill run down their spines as the distorted song filled the air. It was a cruel taunt, a manifestation of the malevolent force's mocking arrogance. The twisted congregation reveled in their victory, taking pleasure in tormenting the last remnants of humanity. Max and Yeva exchanged a determined glance, silently acknowledging the need to press on despite the overwhelming odds. The rocket, their last hope for escape, stood as a beacon of potential salvation amid the encroaching darkness. As the echoes of Barney's mocking song faded, the survivors in the bunker steeled themselves for the final stages of their journey. The war between the resistance and the twisted congregation reached a climactic point, and the fate of Earth now rested in the hands of those who dared to defy Barney's malevolent force. In the dimly lit confines of the bunker, the survivors prepared for the inevitable confrontation. The twisted utopia had claimed much of the world, but within the walls of their refuge, the last remnants of humanity clung to the hope that the rocket would carry them to a new beginning, away from the haunting echoes of Barney's malevolent reign.
As the echoes of Barney's mocking song lingered in the bunker, Max and Yeva found themselves standing in the dimly lit confines, surrounded by the few remaining Russian survivors. In a moment of quiet before the storm, Yeva took a deep breath and uttered a confession in Russian, her words carried by the solemnity of the moment.
Я тебя люблю.
The words held the weight of her feelings, a sentiment she had carried through the trials and tribulations of their harrowing journey. Max, unfamiliar with the language, sensed the gravity of Yeva's words, but couldn't grasp their full meaning. The unspoken connection between them, however, transcended language barriers. Before another word could be uttered, the bunker's steel doors shuddered under the relentless force of the twisted congregation. The malevolent force, having found the last refuge of humanity, sought to extinguish the final flicker of resistance. In an instant, chaos erupted as living dinosaur suits burst into the bunker. The survivors fought valiantly, attempting to hold their ground against the overwhelming tide. Max and Yeva, fueled by a shared determination to survive, navigated through the tumult. Exchanging glances, amid the chaos, the survivors raced toward the rocket, their last hope for escape. The twisted congregation's relentless pursuit echoed through the bunker's corridors. The rocket, standing as a beacon of potential salvation, became the focal point of their desperate flight. As they reached the rocket, the survivors, Max, Yeva, and the remaining Russians swiftly entered the cramped spacecraft. The steel door closed behind them, sealing off the twisted congregation's advance. With a surge of adrenaline, Max and Yeva strapped themselves into their seats, exchanging one last determined look. The rocket's engines roared to life, the vibrations signaling their departure from the desolate Earth. The twisted utopia, now fully under Barney's dominion, faded into the distance as the rocket ascended into the unknown expanse of space. In the confined space of the spacecraft, Yeva, with a sense of ease, reached for Max's hand. The unspoken connection between them had weathered the storms of a world tainted by Barney's malevolence. Together, they soared beyond the reach of the haunting echoes, leaving Earth behind in pursuit of a new beginning among space. In the vast emptiness of space, the rocket named Obnadezhivayushki Pioneer journeyed towards the distant exoplanet Silver 7. The survivors, including Max and Yeva, entered cryosleep, a state of suspended animation that would preserve them for the 500-year journey through the cosmos. As the rocket glided through the cosmic void, the passengers dreamed of a new beginning, leaving the haunting echoes of Earth's twisted utopia behind. The passing centuries unfolded in the blink of an eye for those in cryosleep. The rocket, a testament to humanity's resilience, sped through the cosmic abyss, carrying the dreams of the last survivors toward an unknown destination. As the rocket approached Silver 7, the onboard systems initiated the awakening process. The survivors emerged from cryosleep, their eyes adjusting to the artificial light of the spacecraft. In this new chapter on Silver 7, Max and Yeva, now a couple bound by the shared experience of survival, faced the challenges of adapting to a world that held the promise of a fresh start. The colony thrived on Silver 7. The survivors, their numbers bolstered by generations born on the new planet, built a community with shared aspirations and dreams. Max and Yeva, their love enduring across the vastness of space, played a pivotal role in guiding the tiny settlement toward a future full of possibilities. In their pursuit of understanding and connection, Max and Yeva spearheaded the creation of a special observatory. The observatory, equipped with advanced technology, allowed the inhabitants of Silver 7 to peer through telescopes back at Earth. The haunting echoes of Barney's twisted utopia were now distant memories, replaced by the beauty and wonder of the cosmos. As generations passed, the colony on Silver 7 flourished. The observatory became a symbol of the pioneers' connection to their ancestral home. The descendants of Max and Yeva now gazed back at the distant Earth, an Earth that had become condemned to Barney.